The Russo brothers made what the majority of fans consider to be the best MCU movies. The Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. That's 4 huge movies in a row, an absolutely superb run in the MCU. There is no denying that when at Marvel, they made the best movies of their career.
Assemble.
When they left Marvel, however, they made the worst movies of their career. I was highly anticipating Cherry, and it was so bad I couldn't sit through it. And I wasn't the only one, as it got slammed by critics. Next up was The Grey Man. This movie was so forgettable that I can't even remember it, but I do remember thinking that it was a very generic and dull straight-to-video type of movie, with the only redeeming qualities being the genuinely good action scenes. Although having said that, I can't even remember those either, and this also got slammed by critics. And now we have The Electric State, a film that was supposed to cost them approximately $200 to $250 million, but instead the budget ballooned up to $320 million. That makes The Electric State one of the most expensive movies ever made. And to put it into perspective how expensive, Avatar: The Way of Water is reported to have had a minimum budget of $350 million. Also bearing in mind that Avatar 2 has a runtime of 3 hours and 12 minutes, so that money was spread out across a lot of footage. Meanwhile, excluding credits, The Electric State has a runtime of 1 hour and 54 minutes. So how they spent $320 million on an hour and 54 minute movie with nowhere near the heavy duty requirements of Avatar is beyond me. I mean, we all understand why a movie like Avatar would get such a big budget, but The Electric State? I mean, you're all looking at the footage, tell me, does this look like one of the most expensive movies ever made to you? It really doesn't. Now don't get me wrong, the movie looks good, making use of practical effects and some good CGI, but there are several scenes that are very small scale and look unfinished. As good directors as the Russo brothers are, they work with a lot of CGI, and they aren't well versed with directing movies practically like Christopher Nolan or Matt Reeves or even James Gunn, and it shows with their filmmaking throughout this movie. So we've talked about the visuals, but just wait until you hear the story for this thing. You better sit down for this. Robots. Robots were introduced to the world by Walt Disney, and in 1990, the robots became sentient and decided they didn't want to live under humans anymore, so they rose up and orchestrated a rebellion led by Mr. Peanut, voiced by Woody Harrelson. This war waged on for 4 years, and then the humans came up with the idea to fight them with robots that look like Chappie. And through this, the humans ended up winning the war. The robots were exiled, and humans continued using their contraptions in their day-to-day lives. Yeah, when the most original thing about your movie is Mr. Peanut leading a rebellion, you know you're not in the best of hands. Now, if you couldn't tell already, this film is an amalgamation of so many other movies. It's Chappie, it's Terminator, it's even Avengers Endgame at one point. But in particular, it copies many elements from Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One, specifically with the commentary about people's relationship to technology. But something that Ready Player One has that this movie doesn't is, I don't know, a soul? Ready Player One was very passionate about its subject matter, and it really came through. And that just makes it feel like the cheap rip-off movie. But as we covered, this movie is anything but cheap. And something I constantly found myself asking about this movie is why does it take place in the 90s? They're using virtual reality headsets, and these headsets are far more advanced than anything we use today. And yet, they expect us to believe that people were using these in 1994. Simply put, there is no reason for this movie to take place in the 90s other than to play a bunch of 90s songs and give people 90s wardrobes and hairstyles. It's purely done as a nostalgia play rather than a narrative and story one. And the story we have is just so convoluted and rushed. Okay, so the story sucks, but what about the characters? I mean, we have Eleven and Star-Lord on the poster. Surely they are able to lift this movie up, right? Well, our main character is Michelle, played by Millie Bobby Brown, and right off the bat, her line delivery is so weird at the beginning of the film. We see her trying to be the big sister to her brother, and the scene was trying so hard to be sweet, but it was just full of awkward line delivery. Millie Bobby Brown doesn't at all come across as an older sister. Now, her performance gets better in the rest of the film, but her stilted delivery here not only makes me question the competence of the Russo brothers directing, but it also does a terrible job of establishing the bond between her and her brother, because it just comes across as awkward, and you don't buy for a second that these two are siblings. And the problems don't stop there, as the movie is absolutely full of nonsensical moments, such as Michelle's father not being able to wake up to this.
Ted, there's a robot outside! Stay back!
But then he wakes up to this, all the way in the other room. And going back to this movie feeling rushed, the way Michelle goes from being super scared of this robot, to then fixing him while she's still scared of it, to seeing it fighting her dad, to then joining it on a journey and looking out for it, this was so rushed and underdeveloped that my jaw actually dropped. Now granted, her brother is controlling it, but everything happens so quickly and none of it feels natural. We even get the head on shoulder thing to show how bonded they are, and again, this is more or less 5 minutes after this. And do you know what makes this worse? That's about the only development these two have. After that, they just go from point A to point B, and it's all very uninteresting. And it doesn't help that throughout this movie, the dialogue thinks it's being smart when really it is so badly written, it's actually quite embarrassing.
Besides, you can't steal stuff nobody wants. That's like law.
And you're like a moron.
The two characters that I liked the most were Chris Pratt, who plays Keats, and his robot sidekick, who I was surprised to find is voiced by Anthony Mackie. Now, they weren't amazing characters. Chris Pratt was just doing his usual thing, albeit there was no character to go with it this time round.
No, God. The freaking fridge died.
And his robot sidekick was fun in small bursts, but then he just got kind of irritating. But regardless, they were the two most entertaining characters in the film, but why they team up with Millie Bobby Brown's character is beyond me, because that was also rushed. Actually, no, I'll tell you why they team up. It's because they are the main characters and they thought Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown would look good on the poster, but they didn't put any thought into their characters or why they would team up. So yeah, the pacing is all over the place, the character development is basic and generic, and you don't even get to know the characters before they set out on their journey, and I just couldn't find myself rooting or caring for any of them. And at that point, the movie has failed. Once your story and characters fail to resonate, nothing else matters. Now at this point, I thought this would be the Grey Man situation, where at the very least, I thought we would get some fun action sequences. And that was the bright side of the Grey Man, but sadly, we don't get that silver lining with the Electric State. And that's mainly because the action feels like it's done on the cheap. Yeah, a $320 million movie feels like it's skimping on its action scenes. The action is mostly very small scale, it has really low stakes, and you never feel like the characters are in real danger. The bad guys get taken out so easily, sometimes with toys, and when characters do start dying, you just don't care. And even the characters don't seem to really care.
No, 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 no!
The biggest battle is in the climax, and I was surprised to find that it was just a smaller scale version of the Russo brothers Avengers Endgame battle, except it has nothing that made the Endgame battle so exciting. Also, the music is composed by Alan Silvestri, and a lot of the action music sounded like it came directly from the battle sequences in Wakanda from Infinity War. So as well as ripping off other movies, they bizarrely were ripping off their own work as well.
No!
So the stories, character, and action failed. What else is there to screw up? How about the villain? The villain in this movie is played by Stanley Tucci, and I can't even remember his name. And again, he very much feels like he is the Ready Player One villain. But whereas that villain was a commentary on corporate greed in video games, what this villain does is just absurd and makes no sense. Now there are people who are praising Stanley Tucci's performance in this, saying that he is bringing his A game to a bad script, but I thought that he was very bad in this, and not even he could act his way out of some of these lines.
Our world is a tire fire floating on an ocean of piss.
When I saw the 14% Rotten Tomatoes score, I thought the critics were being too harsh. But then I watched the movie, and although I wouldn't rate it that low, I can totally see why someone else would. The script is what really fails this film. The movie doesn't set the groundwork properly, and as a result, the whole building just falls apart. The story is both underwritten and overwritten, the characters are severely underdeveloped, the entire musical score for the movie didn't fit, the special effects were good but never amazing, as they should be with this budget, the movie's cinematography and visual style is very dull and unappealing, and worst of all, an hour of this movie felt like 2. And the reason for this is because for all the rushed pacing, there are also times where the movie gets incredibly slow and it drags. And sadly, none of this time is used to fix any of the movie's prior issues. And once we finally reach the climax and the emotional scenes start happening, I was bored out of my mind and just wanted the movie to end. I honestly don't know what's going on. The Russos used to be known for great stories, fleshed out characters, amazing action sequences, and very interesting villains. The script is also written by Marcus and McFeely, who helped write the Captain America and Avengers movies, but you'd never know it by watching this film. and I cannot get over the movie's insanely high budget. I want to know what went on behind the scenes with this movie, because there had to be some serious production issues for it to cost so much and deliver so little. When I look at this movie objectively, I see a movie that cost $120 to $150 million max. Not 200 mil, not 250 million, and certainly not 320 million. Even Ready Player One didn't cost that much, and that movie had tons of licensed characters like the Iron Giant, Batman, King Kong, Chucky, Street Fighter characters, and hundreds if not thousands more high-profile IPs. And the Electric State has missed a peanut. And apparently, that'll cost you $320 million. There are far worse movies out there, but based on its own merits, The Electric State is an absolutely terrible movie. None of the ideas or character motivations it presents feel fleshed out, it all feels rushed, and as a direct result, I just couldn't get into it. And I was bored shitless. So my final score for The Electric State is a 2 out of 10. Don't bother wasting your time on this movie. If you want to watch an apocalyptic movie with humans and robots, then watch The Creator. The movie isn't great, but it was so much better than The Electric State, and it had far better special effects, an easy to understand and comprehensible story, and it only cost $80 million. Yeah, you heard me right, $80 million, and it looks infinitely better than this $320 million clusterfuck. Despite their previous 2 terrible movies, I still had faith that if the Russos went back to Marvel, they would get back to their winning streak and produce high quality and well-written movies. This movie though, is the first film that has shaken my faith in them. And I don't know what will happen now when they write and direct Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. Whereas at first it would have given me so much confidence to hear the Russo brothers were coming back, now that confidence has been severely dampened. I have been a supporter of the Russo brothers ever since The Winter Soldier, but now they are back at square one again, and they need to try their hardest to get their shit together and to win our trust back. If you enjoyed this video and like what I do, please do consider supporting me over on Patreon. Even a $1 donation will help keep the lights on and you will get a ton of additional content in return. And a big thanks to all my patrons who are supporting me. Now tell me, what do you think of The Electric State? And did this movie make you lose whatever faith you had left in the Russo brothers? And does it make you worry for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars? Sound off in the comments below. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell right next to it if you haven't already so you can stay up to date with all of my future videos, including my Snow White versus video with the remake and the original animated classic. Thank you very much for watching everyone, I really appreciate it, and I will catch all of you very soon. Take care.